We're ready to start. You ready, Eric?
Ready, Bill.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar on QuerySurge and BI testing. My name is Bill Hayduck. I'm the CEO of RTTS. We're the parent company of QuerySurge. This is the second in a four-part series on automating your data validation and ETL testing. And each webinar's target time frame is 30 minutes. So our goal is to keep them short and to the point. And we will be providing the recordings of all the sessions in an email afterwards. Eric Smythe, QuerySurge's Director of Alliances, is going to be kicking off the webinar with a presentation of QuerySurge and BI Tester. Matt Moss, QuerySurge's Product Manager, will be providing a demo of BI Tester, and Rashad Evans, QuerySurge's Director of Support, will be answering any questions you may have. Which reminds me, if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the Q&A panel on the right. We'll answer as many questions as we can after Matt's demo. Also, please use chat to alert us if you have any issues seeing or hearing the session. Again, thanks again for your time and participation. And now I'll hand it off to Eric to kick it off. Eric?
Thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone for joining. As Bill mentioned, this is the second webinar in our series, and this webinar is focused on business intelligent report testing. So our agenda for today's session is we're going to do a brief overview of QuerySurge. For those of you who may not attended the first session in the series, to just discuss what QuerySurge is, how it works, and how it's used in the marketplace. We'll transition there to BI report testing challenges. So what are some of the common challenges that organizations face when they're looking to validate and test their BI reports? We'll discuss how QuerySurge helps with this challenge and some of the features of our solution. And at that point, I will transition it over to Matthew Moss, who will deliver the product demo. So with that, let's get started with our business case. We know executives make critical decisions based off of their BI and analytics reports. And the assumption, of course, is that the data that's being funneled into these reports is accurate. But due to work with customers and partners, we know that's not always the case. Bad data can be introduced into the architecture and can affect the validity and accuracy of these reports. Well, how does that happen? Well, we know data comes in from many different sources. That's typically ETL'd over into data warehouses that will eventually make it to the data marts that are going to feed your BI and analytic reports. There could be data lakes in the architecture as well as data migration projects going on. In addition, ERP systems could be feeding data to your data warehouses or to your reporting. So anytime data is moving from one system to the other, there's a possibility of a defect being introduced into the architecture, which can make its way into these reports and can cause the reports to be inaccurate. And that's where QuerySurge plays. It helps validate the data as data is moving through your data architecture. We position QuerySurge as the smart testing solution for automated validation and testing of data. Our use cases are listed here. Many customers use QuerySurge for data warehouse testing, ETL testing, where data is coming in from multiple sources, and they want to verify that it's loaded into their data warehouse correctly. QuerySurge supports big data testing. So if customers are using data lakes or big data stores or NoSQL data stores, QuerySurge has the capability to connect to these environments, access data from them, and help verify that the data is coming in and being processed properly. QuerySurge has a very good DevOps continuous testing story. We have a full functioning API that allows you to integrate QuerySurge into any type of build pipeline that you may have around your analytics. QuerySurge is also used for data migration testing or data modernization testing. If you need to compare pre-migration data to post-migration data, QuerySurge can be used to validate and compare millions of records and to ensure that the data integrity is upheld during these projects. And of course, today's focus, we're going to take a look at QuerySurge's solution for BI report testing. So as data gets propagated into your various different BI and analytic reports, QuerySurge can help verify that that data is accurate, that it matches up with the data marts that's feeding into those reports, or even compare it against the original data source where the data is coming from. And our last use case here, enterprise app ERP testing. If you have many different data feeds that are coming into your ERP system and want to be able to verify that that data is coming in correctly, QuerySurge can be used to verify that as well. QuerySurge has over 150 customers in 30 different countries. This is a partial customer list. We have a much more extensive list on our website, but one of the things I always like to point out here is if you take a look at some of the companies listed, it is a wide variety of different vertical markets. So whether it is banking, finance, or insurance, or commerce, or technology companies, all these organizations were struggling with the same challenges. How do I test my data in an effective way, in an automated manner? And they all chose QuerySurge as the key solution to get them to where they need to go. So let's talk a little bit about how QuerySurge would fit into your data testing strategy. In essence, the way QuerySurge works is we have a concept of a test which we call a query pair. And when you design that test, you're going to specify 2 points, your source system and your source system and target system that you want to access to compare data from. So your source system might be a database, a data mart, mainframe, flat file, or some type of web service. And then your target system could be a data lake, a data warehouse, or what we're going to focus on today, a BI report. And what QuerySurge does is at the time of execution, it will request data from both source and target system, and it will retrieve every single cell of every single record that is requested. Now, in a BI situation, we're actually getting the underlying data from the reports, taking that data from behind the graphs, and then we're able to compare it to whatever our source data happens to be. And QuerySurge is able to compare all of this data to look for any type of data anomalies, such as maybe there's a calculated value that's showing up in the graph that is incorrect based on the source data that's coming in, or maybe the totals are completely off, or any other type of data anomaly that you can think of. And what QuerySurge will do is it will take all that data, funnel those metrics into different reports and graphs, as well as automatic email notifications to give users summary of the types of tests that QuerySurge executes. From a process standpoint, we know that when data gets brought in as its original source, inception, and it moves through the different pieces of the data architecture, that ETL developers are coding the data movement based off of some type of requirement or mapping document. And that document usually tells them where the data is coming from, where it's going, and what transformation would have to happen to that data in order for it to be loaded into the system correctly. And this also applies to the BI reports as well. So as the information gets loaded into your data warehouse or your data mart, how is that information being fed into the BI reports so the reports are accurately displaying the information? So from a QuerySurge perspective, what we do is we take those same requirements and we design our query pairs, our tests, around those requirements. And we're able to execute those after the different jobs within the architecture run. So we're able to pinpoint exactly where a defect is introduced into the system. So for example, if you're testing BI reports, it would be helpful to know not only that the information is incorrect at the report level, but maybe it was introduced when the data moved from, let's say, the data lake to the data warehouse. So QuerySurge can be used to pinpoint those issues where they occur. Some of the benefits of the QuerySurge solution, we have a concept of projects. Projects allow you to break down your tests into different groups. This is really important if you have some sensitive data that's of high security and you don't want all users to have access to that data. You can create a separate project in QuerySurge, only allow users who should have access to that sensitive data to be able to work with those types of tests. We have query wizards, which allow you to build these tests without having to write any type of SQL or programmatic code. It has drag and drop capabilities in the QuerySurge UI that allows you to quickly design tests as needed. For more sophisticated tests, we have a design library section, which allows you to write your SQL or incorporate any type of our unique features to enhance your testing effort, such as parameterization with snippets. We can set in thresholds, which allow the test to pass as long as the values fall within an acceptable range. We have a staging area for parking data temporarily if you need to take a snapshot of data at any point in time for your testing effort. Everything within QuerySurge is designed with automation in mind. So we're building these tests to group them into suites, to execute them in bulk, running tests in parallel to be able to reduce the overall testing time and get notification to the users quickly. QuerySurge is able to access data from all different types of platforms, whether they're databases, NoSQL data stores, flat files, and of course today what we're really going to focus on is how QuerySurge interacts with your BI reports. QuerySurge has a full functioning API that allows you to integrate QuerySurge into any type of build pipeline. Almost any command that you can execute through the QuerySurge user interface can also be triggered and run through the various API calls that are available. And then QuerySurge has a plethora of different data analytics and data intelligence reports to give you good insight into the overall health of your data. If you want to build custom reports or point your own BI tool at QuerySurge's metrics, you have the capability of doing that through our Ready for Analytics feature. A little bit about the QuerySurge environment. QuerySurge installs on its own server, has its own database and application server. Users are going to access QuerySurge through the browser. And QuerySurge also has a concept of agents. And what those agents are doing is they are making the requests to the different data technologies that you're working with. More agents allow you to run more sets of tests in parallel, which can reduce your overall testing time. QuerySurge works with all your browsers, operating system supported are Windows and Linux, and you can install QuerySurge either on a physical machine, inside a virtual machine, or in a cloud architecture. One thing to note is QuerySurge is not a multi-tenant hosted SaaS solution. QuerySurge always gets deployed within your architecture, behind your physical or virtual firewalls, which means customers always have complete control of the data at all times. And QuerySurge is a Java application, and it connects to all the different data technologies we're talking about through JDBC drivers. So we come bundled with several different drivers. Those are drivers we've either developed ourselves that are open source drivers, or we have a relationship with the vendor and they allow us to bundle their driver with QuerySurge. But for any of the others, you can typically download a JDBC driver from the vendor's website, place it on a QuerySurge agent, and it can be used for any of the tests that you're working with. For the BI tools that we're going to be talking about today, these are specifically drivers that have been developed for QuerySurge and will give you a unique strategy for testing those BI reports. So hopefully that provides you a brief overview of QuerySurge and what its capabilities are. But what we're going to do now is focus specifically on BI report testing and some of the challenges that go with it. So as you can see from this quote from CIO Magazine, it only takes 1 or 2 people saying, "I don't trust the data," to invalidate a report, and that can tank a whole project. The information that's being captured by your organization and brought into business intelligence and analytics reports is essential, because if the reports are inaccurate, then what's the point of having and collecting all of this data that your organization is gathering through the different means that you have? So what are the common use cases and how are people currently going about testing these reports now? Well, one is what we call compare visualization, where you're comparing the underlying numbers within the database to what's being displayed in the front end of the report. So you want to make sure that the report is displaying accurate data based off of the numbers that are being collected in your backend systems. Another type of test is comparing one report to another. This could be used if you're going through a vendor migration project where you may be changing your underlying reporting system from one vendor to another. It could be that you have different clients using different reporting mechanisms, and you want to make sure that the data is displayed in all the different reporting systems the same way. 3, ensure reports have been updated correctly. So as development is being done, either on the data architecture or the developing of the reports, you want to be able to rerun your tests and ensure that there have been no changes, and any of the changes that have been deployed are being displayed correctly in the reports. And lastly, compare to trends in normal business operations. You may want to do some evaluation of the data being displayed and say, does it make business sense? Is the information that we're seeing, what we're expecting to see? Are there any outliers in the data? And if so, should we investigate that? So those are the typical use cases you'll see when organizations are looking to go about testing their BI environment. Common data verification methods now. A lot of BI testing is still done manually. We refer to that as stare and compare, where you're looking at the visualizations, seeing the information, and trying to then run a query against the database and look at the result set and make sure that the data matches up. Also, we'll see standard automation tools used as well, which they'll be used to capture some of that data, execute the queries against the backend system, and compare the data. Some of the challenges with these types of processes is that BI testing is mostly a manual process, so it doesn't scale, right? So if you're doing large sets of reports and graphs, it's not going to work. And other issues is these automation tools are not designed for capturing data from the visualization components. Selenium, for instance, is great for dealing with edit boxes and drop-down menus and radio buttons. It's not as great of pulling data from graphs that you typically see in your BI reports. So QuerySurge has a unique solution for being able to validate and test BI reports. Our drivers can hit the servers directly that are hosting the BI reports, pull the data out of the various visualizations, and then use that for your testing purposes. It allows you to do full regression testing for all your reports. It's great for testing one vendor's data display to another's. If you're doing any type of upgrading, if you need to pass parameters to check filtering on your reporting level, or even test metadata. So the QuerySurge solution has the capability of really enhancing what you're currently doing around your BI testing and to automate the entire process. So as you can imagine, right now, the business intelligence and analytic reporting market is pretty varied. There are lots of different vendors out there. And what we tried to do from a QuerySurge perspective is support a lot of the major players. So with our coverage, you can see we support Power BI, Tableau, MicroStrategy, Cognos, Oracle, as well as SAP Business Objects. So with the breadth that we cover a large percentage of the marketplace currently. We offer a 15-day trial for our BI tester component with QuerySurge. You can simply go to our website. There's a try it free button in the upper right-hand corner that you can click on. It gives you access to the trial, which you can download. You can also request a demo. So if you want to see QuerySurge in action, reach out. There's a request a demo button on our homepage. You can reach out to the team and they will be able to provide that for you. So hopefully that provides you an overview of the QuerySurge's BI tester functionality. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition control over to Matthew Moss, and Matthew is going to be able to provide you an overview of the product. Take it away, Matt.
Thank you very much, Eric. So in this demo, I'm going to show you how you can query data directly out of Power BI. So if you have a visualization, whether it's a pie chart, a graph, or any particular visualization in Power BI, you'll be able to pull that data out and compare it against other Power BI reports, other reports in different systems such as MicroStrategy, Tableau, Cognos, or SAP Business Objects, or even backend data stores and flat files. The first thing I need to do is I'm just going to log into my QuerySurge instance. And what I'm going to do is create a new query pair. I currently have a connection to Power BI already set up. And the thing about setting up connections to Power BI, it is incredibly simple to do. It just requires some pre-steps. And we have articles on our knowledge base which describes the steps on how to do that. There's two main methods for setting up connections. The first is with a service principal, which is an account type that's not tied to an individual user. We then have a second method which uses what's called a master user. The advantage of using a master user is you can have row-level security automatically integrated in all of your testing. So if you have row-level security with Power BI, you can test that customizations that you've implemented. To create a new query pair, all I need to do is on my left-hand side over here, I'll select my query pair folder, and I'll click this Create New Query Pair. All of the testing assets in QuerySurge follow this methodology. We need to provide a name for our query pair, and it just needs to be unique for the folder that we're in. In this case, I'm going to call it Demo Power BI. And I could provide a description and even a link to a mapping document if I want. That way it's easy to trace what this particular test is for. I'll click Save, and you'll see what a query pair looks like in QuerySurge. And it's exactly as it sounds. It's a source and target with connections available for both. These editors here will allow you to write any SQL that is necessary to test your different data sources. And you'll actually be writing SQL against a Power BI report like it is a table in any other database. The first thing I'm going to do is from my dropdown over here, I'm going to select my Power BI connection. And this list here contains all of the different connections currently configured in my particular QuerySurge instance. And you can see it runs the gambit of technology stack. I'm going to select my Power BI connection that I've configured, and I'm actually going to select the same connection on my target side. Because what I'm going to do in this particular demo is compare two visualizations in Power BI to each other. I'll click Save. And I need to start now writing my SQL. It's going to sound a little bit strange, but once you start to see how QuerySurge works with Power BI, you'll understand how quickly and easy it is to test all of your visualizations regardless of the platform they're on. What I'm going to do on my source side is I'm actually going to write a select star from, and then I use a special command called Power BI report. And this special command takes in 4 parameters. I'm just going to leave them empty for right now. Each one of these parameters helps QuerySurge identify the particular group, report, page, and visual that we want to extract. And we can grab all of that information directly from Power BI itself and simply copy and paste it directly in QuerySurge. The first field that we need is our work group. And I have Power BI open over here on my other tab. Work groups in Power BI allow you to organize all of your different reports into different areas. This way you can have the same report with the same name in a different work group for different teams. Maybe it's filtered by a particular region, or maybe it's in test mode and you don't want to expose it publicly. All of your groups, when you select it, will update automatically your URL. What you see in here is it says groups, and then it has a GUID right here. All we need to do is copy this GUID directly out into QuerySurge. And this is completely unique, so you don't have to worry about having work groups with the same name or any time that they'll ever conflict with each other. As long as you're in your same Power BI instance, you should never have to worry that that will be duplicated. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop that in my first field, and I'm done. The next phase that I need to do is I need to provide which report I want to grab my data from. As you notice, if I click on this work group, we have a large amount of reports that are existing as part of this particular workspace. All I need to do is click on the report that I want to test. In this case, it's my sales and marketing report. And you'll see, just like our group, we have a unique GUID that exists in our URL right after the word reports. And again, it's as simple as copy and paste directly into our query pair. And I'm just going to put these on new lines so it's a little bit easier to see. Now, we have 2 other fields here. The first field that we have that we need to fill out is going to be the page where our visualization exists on. What you'll notice in Power BI, we have the ability to add infinite number of pages. These pages allow you to organize your visualizations, make it easier to focus on specific subject areas. All you need to provide in QuerySurge is the text of the page name. The easiest way to do this is to click the Edit button and just select Rename and copy the page name directly out. You can write it manually if you so choose. Just remember to keep the same case sensitivity as you see inside of the UI. The last piece of information that we need in our extraction rule here is going to be which of these many visualizations we want to test. As you can see here, we have a single value called total category by volume. We have units market share. We have a graph that is showing our percent market share. Another graph over here with total category volume by segment. And finally, another graph down here with total units. We need to specify which one of these visuals we want to extract data from in order to do our testing. For my particular use case, what I want to grab is this 49,832 number. And what I need to have is the title of this visualization. So I can click on that particular object, select Format, and just copy out the title. I'll paste that right here. This is all I need now to extract data right out of Power BI and validate the number that I am seeing. However, I have not created yet my target side on my query pair. What I'm going to do is create a very similar query on my target side, but I'm going to actually compare 2 visualizations together. I'm going to copy all of this detail, excluding the particular visualization. What I'm actually going to compare this to, this 49,832 number, is this total category volume by segment section. This number should match, if I add up all of our segments, they should be the exact same value. And this allows me to know that my reports have integrity. The numbers that I'm showing make sense logically, even if I'm showing it broken up by particular segments, or if I'm calculating it on another report. It's very useful that all of your reports be in sync. If you show a metric and it's different from report to report, stakeholders are going to definitely have issues and not trust the data set itself. Now, because my reports are slightly different, this is a summarized value and this is broken up by segment, I'm actually going to have to do a small transformation. First thing I'm going to do is grab my title like I did before to let QuerySurge know where I want to grab my data from. And I'll paste that right here. Take out this extra item over here. And then what I need to do is sum up all of our different segments here. If you notice here, our segment category name is total category volume. So what I'm going to do is actually going to create an aggregation here. So I'm going to take my value and I'm going to do sum cast, because I want to cast this string that exists here, which is a string value, into a number. I'm going to cast that, put in my name of my field, like so. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to sum up all of those fields together to compare it against that one point. And what we should see is this matches all of these summed together. The great thing about the way we integrated with Power BI and with all of our BI testing reports is you can put logic like this directly into your queries. You can essentially treat any of your visualizations as tables. That means you can join visualizations together. You can do summations like we're doing here. You can even do ETL where you're concatenating fields together, or doing mathematical validation if you want to put a business rule in place to make sure things make logically sense in your data set. To kick off this test is also incredibly easy. Once we have our queries set up and they look correct, all we need to do is click this Design Time Run button right here. This will let us kick off our test, and we'll actually pull the data live from Power BI directly from the report itself, compare it together, and make sure that they are matching correctly. You'll notice here I can select any of my agents that I have up and running. The great thing about QuerySurge is you can run your tests in parallel. So if you have 50 or 100 tests that you want to run very quickly, you can spin those off on different agents and get results in a matter of minutes. To click off this test, I'm just going to select the Run button here. And the process that it takes for extracting out of Power BI takes only a few minutes to go through. And this is because it's actually going to run those Power BI reports and pull live data from your system. You'll see a real-time status being updated on your screen. It'll let you know what query is currently executing. So you'll know if the source query or the target query is currently pending. You'll also see here the result data from your analysis. So our analysis phase, if you're pulling in, say, 1 billion records, that might take some time, and you'll know exactly where QuerySurge is at any given point. What we can see here is our source and target are running. Both of these are going to be pulling down our Power BI reports, extracting that data for our comparison. They have now completed, and we can kick off our analysis phase. I should expect only one row to return back, as we only have one row of data displayed here, just that 49,832. And because I'm summing all of these values together, I should only get one record as well. Going back to QuerySurge, I do have a small exception here, and this is because I am casting my target side as a varchar or as a integer, but I'm not doing the same on my source side. And the easiest way to deal with that is in QuerySurge, we have a set of properties that really allow you to do robust manipulation of your query pairs. Things like thresholding, shared keys, duplicate options, and the like. Because I know my data types are going to mismatch, I can either cast my source side, or I can just turn off worrying about data types right here. And I'm going to do that. Click Save and re-kick that test off. This will now run and not worry if the data types don't match identically. It's going to check the values apples to apples, but I won't have to do casting or manipulation of any of my data fields. And this is incredibly useful if you're going across data sources. Often a data type in Oracle is different than a data type in, say, Snowflake. By turning data types off, we completely avoid it as a potential cause of failure. But if we want to ensure that data type's matching, we can always keep that value on. Give it a few seconds for our test analysis to complete. And if we don't have any syntactical issues in our query, we should see that we are matching 100%. We can now view the results here. So we have a nice summary of our test execution. We see that it passed, and we got one row from our source and one row from our target as we expect. If we want to drill in, all we need to do is click this View Query Result button. When we do that, we'll actually see the data that QuerySurge has extracted. And you can see this data matches exactly what we see in Power BI. And I can put that in side-by-side mode. So you can see we have 49,832, and that's exactly what we're getting in our source side. Our target, where we were doing our summation, we should also have that same value, and thus we have no failures. If we wanted to cause a failure, what I can do is I can go right back to my query pair here, and instead of doing this sum, all I'm going to do is change it to a select star. What should happen here is we should get a mismatch in the number of rows which are coming back, because rather than summing all of these particular fields, which we have multiple of, we're actually going to get separate rows for them. And we can actually see what the failure will look like. I'm going to do a quick run here. Actually, before that, I'm just going to limit it to a specific column. That way we don't have column mismatches if we have extra columns that are coming back here. So again, I'm going to click my design time run this again, and this will let you see how QuerySurge shows its failures. The great thing about QuerySurge is we quickly and easily identify any of the failures you might have from your run executions. They can be exported directly out of our tool, either as Excel files, CSVs, XMLs, or you can programmatically update them into your ETL tools or your defect tracking system. We have APIs available which pre-format all of your results, and we even have plugins for many common tools out there, such as Rational Quality Manager. We have an Azure DevOps plugin as well, all found on different marketplaces. So this should run relatively quickly as we're pulling in some extra rows, and we can see what a failure would look like with QuerySurge. We can see very quickly is that our test run has a failed status. And as expected, our source is returning that one record. But now that we removed out our summation, we now are getting 8 records from our target, which corresponds to the 8 records we see here. If I view my results, we'll see the same data, our 1 row from our source, and our 8 rows from our target. And then on the failure side over here, it's going to highlight any of those mismatches. And all of this data, as I pointed out, is exactly what you're getting inside of Power BI. So we can see 14,680. Now, this is a very high-level demo on the features of Power BI. We have videos that go far more in-depth, as well as great articles. But I want to save some time for any questions that may have came up regarding how QuerySurge integrates with our different BI reporting tools. So I'll pass that on over to Rasad, who's been getting all of those questions in.
Thank you, Matt. I know we're a bit over, so what I'll do is I'll just answer a few of the questions that we have, and then any other questions that are outstanding that I do not answer here, we'll do our best to get back to you individually. First question is, which BI tools are currently supported by QuerySurge? Just a general list. Obviously, we see Microsoft Power BI is supported from the demo that we've gotten here. We also support Tableau, MicroStrategy, IBM Cognos, SAP Business Objects Web Intelligence, and Oracle OBIEE. The next question is, are there any plans for any additional BI tool support? And the answer is yes. We are in the phase of discussion of what other BI tools we are looking to support. Among them are tools like Click and Looker. As we develop QuerySurge and go forward, we look to integrate these different types of tools and add additional functionalities for these BI tools. Next question is, do you support testing reports that contain filters in a tool like Tableau? And the answer is yes. There are different formats, as Matt has shown you, in which you can enter different pieces of information in your query for your particular report, and filtering within Tableau is one of those. The next question is, can we test dossiers in MicroStrategy? Unfortunately, the current implementation does not support dossiers, but those are under development. So in an upcoming version of QuerySurge, we will support dossiers. I think I'm going to leave it there for now since we were quite a bit over, but as I mentioned, we'll get back to you on any other questions that I wasn't able to answer.
Great. Thanks, Eric, Matt, and Rashad. That wraps up our QA session. Thanks again for your time and participation today. Feel free to join us for any of the other webinars in this 4-part series. Also, as Rashad said, we'll be sending a follow-up email to you with a link to the recording of this webinar plus all the other ones. Thanks again and have a good day.